Welcome to Thriving with Chiropractic, where Dr. Mosier from Mosier Family Chiropractic shares a variety of topics designed to empower, inspire, and give hope. Take a few notes and enjoy the lesson.
Hey folks, this is Dr. Mosier here, and I have a wrist in my hand. So what we're going to be talking about today is carpal tunnel syndrome, and it's nicknamed the curse of modern society. So stay tuned all the way through this broadcast, because at the end we're going to have a special offer just for you. But let's talk about carpal tunnel for a minute. So in the wrist, there is a median nerve. And that median nerve innervates the thumb, the index, middle, and partially the ring finger. And so with that, underneath in the wrist, there are 8 carpal bones, and it's that median nerve is on top of that. And then on top of that is your retinaculum, this soft tissue, this fibrocartilage here. And so it really makes a tunnel, and it's a very small tunnel, meaning that it's very vulnerable to swelling. It's vulnerable to pressure and irritation. And so many of our folks that work on computers are subjective to carpal tunnel syndrome. It's actually estimated to be about 10% of folks that work on computers. Another stat is about 4 to 10 million Americans suffer with carpal tunnel syndrome. And women, another stat here on the PowerPoint is women are more likely to suffer with carpal tunnel syndrome than men. And so carpal tunnel actually starts out as a mild tingle. It starts out not so bad. It comes, it goes, no big deal. And then it can actually progress into excruciating pain, crippling pain, where you lose sleep at night, where you start dropping your coffee mug or your tools, what have you, because it's causing atrophy in your hand. And I'll use my model again. There's all sorts of muscles in the hand. And so if you weaken those, you weaken your grip. So now I highlighted this in your PowerPoint, but a medical doctor states that specific treatments from a chiropractor can be very effective in addressing the underlying structural cause of carpal tunnel syndrome. He went on to say that surgery for this condition should be avoided if at all possible because of its high failure rate. And then there's actually another medical doctor that said pain may spread up the forearm and up, even in severe cases, to the shoulder, and carpal tunnel syndrome may have its beginnings in either the neck, upper back, or shoulders. A visit to a chiropractor may help in determining whether this is the case. And so I found that pretty interesting, and I hope you do as well. But let's talk about some root causes. So obviously, if the cervical spine, the neck, is misaligned, those are called subluxations. If those are misaligned, it irritates the nerve roots, which is what innervates down the arm and into the hands. But the other mechanical stressors with carpal tunnel would be continuous use of your hands and your fingers. So we're in a rural community, so farmers or factory workers or lawn care. And speaking of lawn care, vibration is another one. So I remember many years ago working in lawn care, and they always had me carrying the weed eater around. And those will shake your wrist and hands quite a bit, as many of you probably already know. But the other interesting one is pregnancy. So in pregnancy, when women are pregnant, they are more likely to retain water. And we already spoke about how this is such a small tunnel and very vulnerable to damage or irritation, that if there's water retention, swelling, that can actually cause a lot of pregnant women to have carpal tunnel symptoms. And then in all the research articles, vitamin B6 is deficient in many carpal tunnel cases. And so the symptoms, and I mentioned this previously, but numbness, tingling, and pain, but it actually progresses to weakness. And so dropping things, not being able to make a fist, or like I said earlier, from the medical doctor, pain radiating up from the wrist up to the shoulder. So there's quite a bit that can happen with carpal tunnel. But I want to talk about Shelby for a second. Shelby is the patient of the month. She is very happy to share her story, and I'm going to dive into her story a little bit more. But when she first came to us, she was in high school. This was 2018. She still works for her aunt over at Country Cooking as a waitress. And we're very proud of her. She's finishing up her college degree in business, her associate's degree. And she volunteers for Rotary Club. So this is a remarkable young lady. But when she came in 2018, she had mid-back pain. She described it as forever and ever. And her neck hurt, her left shoulder hurt. It was tender and tight. But how she injured her wrist was in 2015. She was catching a basketball from her brother. And ever since then, she had difficulty writing. It was painful. She went and saw a hand specialist. She got corticosteroid shots, and the wrist pain always came back. So I highlighted a couple key things in this. One being 2015 is when the injury happened. But as you may recall, she started with me in 2018. So Shelby suffered with this for about 3 years, where she was having pain. And if you remember in high school, as do I, taking notes frantically, if it's painful, that's quite a challenge. It's already challenging enough. So the other one is hand specialists. So she saw a hand specialist. And so for the logical decision for her and for her mom is to go to a hand specialist for these symptoms. And that's what a lot of people think. And that's because people don't know that chiropractic can help with the wrist and carpal tunnel things. And that's why I'm sharing this with you, because I think it's important for many of us to know. So let's talk about, what do I do for carpal tunnel? So I have a slide here of T1. Now, the reason why T1, that's the upper back. Excuse me. So it's funny that I just coughed. So asthma cough can be associated with T1. Pain in the lower arms and hands, or shortness of breath, because these nerves innervate the esophagus, trachea, wrist, and fingers. So I adjust those areas. I adjust the cervical and upper back, spine, but I also adjust the extremities. And so in the wrist, there is a lunate bone. It's one of the 8 that will sublux, and it will put pressure on the median nerve. The other is the forearm, and I have my little model. This is the humerus. It's quite a hilarious bone. Sorry, that was an anatomy joke. And then you got your radius and your ulna bones. And so the radial head here needs to swivel. Okay. The reason why, it allows our hand to pronate and supinate. And so that allows that. And so if it's jammed, you'll have quite a bit of tightness in the muscles here. Plus, you're going to also be irritating the median nerve that actually begins here and goes to the hands. And then this is a neat slide. Some of you may not recognize this. Many of my fellow medical and healthcare providers will recognize this, because this is in all of our anatomy classes. It's called the brachial plexus. Now, the reason why I'm showing this to you guys is really to show the complexity of the nervous system. And if you look, C5 to T1, those nerves branch together, they branch apart, and they continue to do this. And at the end of that diagram on the left, you see the median nerve in the middle. So actually, the median nerve is innervated by all 5 of those nerve roots. And so that's really neat. And moving forward to some x-rays. So these are Shelby's x-rays. So, and don't worry, you don't have to be a x-ray expert to see this. But the picture on the left is Shelby's side view x-rays of her neck. And the curve in the neck is missing. So you can see the yellow curved line. That's how it should be. And her lower cervical spine is trying to go with it. And then the upper part of her neck reverses and goes the wrong way. So that puts a lot of strain biomechanically on the cervical spine. And then if you look at C5, C6, and C6, C7, those discs are actually thinning. And so it's a form of degenerative disc disease. And if those discs thin, the nerve roots behind the vertebrae actually can get impinged upon. So that's why chiropractic and the overall functioning health, why it correlates. So that's that picture. The other picture, the one where it's taken of her straight on, well, that should be straight up and down. And you can see she's 2.8 millimeters unlevel. And I know millimeters is not a big measurement tool, but 2.8 in the spine, it is quite a bit. So those are her x-rays, and that's Shelby and me. And I'll read you what her testimonial was. When I first came into the office, I knew that I had a variation of carpal tunnel. Before I started to get my wrist adjusted, I could barely write without it hurting. After I started to get it adjusted, I was and am able to write with ease, and I have gained strength back into my wrist and hand. So that's a very exciting story. And I want to share just a little bit of a chiropractic science twist, the chiropractic philosophy with a science twist. So in carpal tunnel, their diagnosis tool that they use is electromyograph. And it's where they send electrical impulses through the nerves and seeing how fast it goes. And so the normal speed is 136 meters per second, which that's really fast. It's about 300 miles an hour. If the neurotransmission speed drops down to 95 meters per second, 200 miles an hour, which is still very fast, there indicates nerve damage, nerve impingement, which thinking about 200 miles an hour, and hopefully my dad doesn't see this broadcast, but when I was a teenager, he had this silver Dodge Hemi, and it had some get up and go, that truck did. And whenever he'd let me borrow it, and if you know my dad, don't share this with him, I would crank it up on the back roads to 90, 100 miles an hour, and the cab would shake. So hopefully he doesn't see this broadcast. But back to what I'm saying, if the nerve transmission can slow down due to pressure irritation in the wrist, that also means that nerve pressure or irritation can slow down the nerve transmission in other places. So the question is, what if it goes to your heart, to your lungs, things of that nature, that don't necessarily produce pain, but maybe it could be slowing down the optimal function of that organ. So something to think about. And speaking of your organs and the nervous system of your organs, this is called specifically autonomic nervous system. And so as you can see in the chart, your nerves in your neck go to your eyes, nose, ears, and throat. So you could have blurry vision, ringing in the ears, sinus issues, or even headaches due to a subluxation here. In your mid-back, you have, it goes to your heart, your lungs, your stomach. So acid reflux, breathing issues, blood pressure issues, things of that nature. And then down in your low back, you have your large and small intestine. And so you could have ulcerative colitis, you could have Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, diarrhea. You could it's just a really crappy situation down there. So let's talk about some comparative costs for a second. So electromyograph, on average, costs about $247 out of pocket. Surgery out of pocket, about $4,200. And then corticosteroids, $98 each time you do it. And a lot of people suffer with carpal tunnel in both wrists. And so that can add up quite a bit. And then specialty visits or specialist visits, those are not inexpensive either. But let's talk about Shelby is not the only success story that we have on carpal tunnel. We have many others. A couple that come to mind is a plumber who was dropping his tools, which if you work for yourself, dropping your tools is not efficient. And so that was getting frustrating for him. I used to compete in strongman competitions, and a fellow competitor who was competing at a high level at Worlds, he would ask us to adjust his wrist and his forearm, and then Ellen would massage his forearm to give him that competitive edge. And then a Tyson egg farmer, we have many of those here in town or in the community. So he was, due to his carpal tunnel, dropping eggs, which is really dropping money in the farming world. And the other one is a hairdresser that I wanted to mention. She's a young lady. She just went through cosmetology school. She's very excited about this new career. It's a good career, cutting hair. But her wrist and her hands were getting weak, and she wasn't sure if she was going to be able to continue this career path. And so all of those have had success. The hairdresser now has a very large clientele. She's doing very well. So I wanted to share that with you. Now, this picture, this is actually Sherry. Sherry is, if you don't know her, she is our newest staff member. She came to us from working in the factory. And you can see she just finished carpal tunnel surgery. Actually, before coming to us, she didn't know about chiropractic either. And her hands all swollen. And when she went in to the surgery, she had to pay out of pocket. There was no payment options. There was none of that. It was just cash on the table, about $3,700. And she also informed me that her electromyograph did not cost $247. It cost $600. So let's find out if you have carpal tunnel. So the Phalanx Maneuver. This is an easy one. You just take your back of your hands and you bring them together. And if you have numbness, tingling, or weakness in the hands, you could possibly have CTS or carpal tunnel syndrome. Tunnel's sign is where you take your finger and you tap where the median nerve is. And if you have a zing or something to that effect, you could have carpal tunnel. And then the provocative test is really where you just put direct pressure on that median nerve. So some of the therapies that we utilize here in the office is icing the neck, icing the forearm. Those can really get inflamed. And so ice is a natural, healthy way of de-inflaming the nerve roots. And then, of course, we're going to talk about nutrition and some nutritional things that you can do to put your spine, put your health at ease, really have the building blocks for a healthy life. And then I do want to talk about cross-friction massage. And so if you take your forearm and these muscles here, you can really dig into those pronator muscles and get those to relax, relaxing the stress of strain on the wrist. So that's something you can do at home. Of course, we have a massage therapist ready to serve you and take care of you. But I wanted to share that with you. So let's talk about nutrition for a second. So, of course, we recommend drinking plenty of water. That really, we're made up of about 70% of water. And so we really need water in our bodies to function at our optimal health. But moving forward from the water is vitamin B6. And the reason why it's so important is because it reduces nerve inflammation that is found in carpal tunnel. You can get that in beans, green leafy vegetables, things like that. A couple things to avoid is saturated fat, because that slows down the blood flow or circulation, excuse me. You also want to avoid cigarette smoke. That slows down blood circulation as well. Calcium and magnesium reduces muscle tightness and nerve irritation. White willow is an herbal extract that reduces pain and inflammation. Coenzyme Q10 it improves the tissue oxygenation, so healing. Zinc enhances healing as well. Vitamin A and E are antioxidants, and vitamin C reduces swelling. So I have a picture here of the Edison pack. This is the vitamins that we offer here in town. Whenever you go in and you're looking for vitamins or supplements, my big recommendation for you is don't go with the cheap stuff. Make sure you get something that has the dosage that you need, has the form that you need. Many of your cheaper products, they say they have X, Y, and Z, but they don't have it in the format, chemical format that you can actually absorb. So something just to keep in mind. Our Edison pack does have all of those vitamins and minerals in them, except for the cigarette smoke. We don't have that in there, of course, but all the others we do. Something else that we utilize here in the office is laser. We have an Aspen laser. It's a class 4 laser. The fancy way of explaining this is it's photobiomodulation. Really what it does is an infrared light that stimulates the cells, the mitochondria within the cells. And the mitochondria, you may remember this from biology class in high school, but it is the powerhouse of the cell. So it produces ATP. ATP is the energy currency in our bodies. So if it stimulates the mitochondria, it stimulates more ATP production, meaning your cells have more protein synthesis, tissue repair. And so this really helps your body repair itself. So no chemicals or anything like that embedded in you. And like I mentioned earlier, we do have a special offer, of course, since you have watched the entirety of this program. And it's really a consultation, exam, and x-rays. Let's just find out, is chiropractic right for you? My normal fee for this is $175. Of course, we're going to offer that to you for $30. That examination, we utilize the Insight CLA examination process. It's the heart rate variability, measuring how balanced your nervous system is, the thermography, measuring where those nerve impingements are, and we'll check the entire spine, not just your neck. We're also going to check the muscles, using a surface EMG that measures how tight your muscles are. It gives us a great baseline to see where we're at, and then, of course, where we end. And then let's go back to Shelby's x-rays for a second. These are pre and post x-rays. The first ones you've already seen, of course, but the second one, you can see that her anterior head carriage measurement is less. The curvature in her lower neck is closer to the line. And the disc spacing from 5 and 6 and 6 and 7, you can see are much thicker, reducing that nerve pressure and irritation. The other fun view is the front view. And so you saw that she was on level to now level. So that really helps the biomechanics of her spine. So I really want to thank you all for joining us with Thriving with Chiropractic. We will produce more of these videos for you, really trying to pour into you, empower you, inspire you, and give hope. So stay tuned. I'm going to share a video clip for you to teach you more about us and what we're all about. Have you ever wondered why we are so passionate about serving our community? It's because years ago, Ellen used to suffer with severe migraines, and we were actually told by the medical community that there's nothing they can do, that she was going to have to deal with this for the rest of her life. Luckily, we discovered chiropractic care, and it actually changed our lives, and she no longer has to deal with migraines anymore. I know what it's like to be pushed away by the medical community. I know what it's like, and I know the pain of the statement, you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. Under this roof, you will be treated like family. Our purpose is to empower, inspire, and give hope to those who are broken, battered, and bruised. because an empowered person can move mountains and make waves not only in their lives, but in the lives of those around them. We also don't want to just externally motivate you, but internally move you, because we all have a story worth sharing. And then there's hope. Hope is a light, and for some of us, that light is looking pretty dim. Due to the condition that we're dealing with, or whatever that we're dealing with, it leads to a diminishing light. But what we specialize in is finding the problem and fixing the problem, because our vision is to be a lighthouse of hope, allowing our light to shine through. And no matter how busy it looks, we are like church. We can always squeeze one more in. Therefore, our mission is simple. It's one more. One more mom, one more dad, one more grandparent, one more child, one more life saved by chiropractic care.
If you found value in this video, please comment and let us know your biggest takeaway. We also ask that you don't keep this information to yourself. We ask that you share it with your friends and family by simply clicking the share button below.